Ada stood frozen in the inner corridor, her back pressed against the cold wall. Above her, the ventilation vent rattled softly. Then came the whisper. Close. Too close. Ada Okafor. Her blood turned to ice. The voice floated through the metal vents like smoke. You are the key, the voice whispered through the darkness. Ada's heart pounded. Key to what? But before we understand how Ada ended up trapped in that corridor, hearing whispers through the vents, we must go back. Back to the morning after Clara's arrest. Back to when the mansion first fell into an uneasy, dangerous quiet. The mansion was quieter than it had been in years. Not the peaceful kind of quiet that comes after celebration or laughter. No. This quiet felt like the air itself was afraid to move. Afraid to breathe. Afraid that any sound might break whatever thin thread of calm still held the place together. Clara had been taken away hours ago. Samuel Okoro walked out shortly after, shoulders stiff, eyes tired, but his heart finally lightened by truth. Chief Benson had followed him out briefly, speaking softly, apologizing with the voice of a man who had lost too much already. Afterward, he left the mansion as well, too ashamed to face anyone inside. Mama Grace prayed quietly in the corner, whispering words only heaven could properly interpret. And David Anderson stood outside the mansion gates, hands tucked into his pockets, staring at the slow sunset as though trying to read a message hidden in the sky. His mind replayed the last few hours like a broken movie reel. Clara's screams. The confession. The recording. The betrayal buried beneath silk and smiles. And Ada. Ada standing firm when no one else would. For years he believed loyalty meant closing one's eyes to the shadows around a person. He believed love meant protecting someone even when they didn't deserve it. But today taught him something new. Love was truth. And truth was freedom. He inhaled deeply, letting the cool evening breeze wash over him. Behind him, the workers moved quietly in the house, resetting chairs, wiping down tables, sweeping the marble floor. Not because he told them to, but because they didn't know what else to do with their hands while their hearts processed everything they had witnessed. Inside, Ada finished rinsing her hands in the staff kitchen sink. She dried them on a small towel and stared at her reflection in the glass panel of the cupboard. Her face looked tired. More tired than she expected for a day she didn't anticipate being at the center of. She touched her wrist. The same wrist she'd used to catch Clara's slap. She didn't regret it. Not for a second. But she also didn't expect the chaos that followed. A soft knock at the door frame made her turn. It was Mama Grace. Child, the older woman said gently, stepping inside. I need to speak with you. Ada nodded and followed her to the corner of the kitchen where the light from the window painted Mama Grace's face in warm gold and soft shadows. They sat for a moment. The older woman said nothing. Her eyes were lowered, deep in thought, almost sad. Are you all right, Ma? Ada asked softly. Mama Grace lifted her head and chuckled. One of those tired laughs that never reached the eyes. I should be asking you that question. She reached out and held Ada's hand. My dear, you were brave today. But your bravery came at a cost none of us expected. Ada shook her head. I didn't want trouble. I only wanted her to stop. And she did, Mama Grace said. Because of you. Silence again. Then Ada asked the question she had been avoiding since the chaos began. Do you think I did the right thing? Mama Grace squeezed her hand. My child, the truth is simple. You saved someone else from being hurt. That is always the right thing. Ada exhaled deeply, relief softening her shoulders. But Mama Grace wasn't finished. There is something you must understand about this house, the woman continued. People think working for the wealthy is only about cleaning, arranging, cooking. But sometimes it is also about seeing their secrets, their weaknesses, their hidden wounds. Ada swallowed. She knew where this was going. Clara's downfall began long before you stopped her hand, Mama Grace said softly. You did not break her. Life did. Her choices did. Her lies did. You were only the mirror she finally had to face. Ada nodded slowly. Then Mama Grace leaned closer. But Ada, there is one person in this house whose future now ties into yours. Ada blinked. She didn't understand. Who, Ma? Mama Grace smiled gently. David. Ada jumped slightly. No, Ma. Sir David is a billionaire. I'm just a maid. He's going through too much already. Mama Grace lifted her hand and Ada fell silent. Child, she said with a knowing look. You remind him of something he has not seen in a long time. Ada's heart thudded. She looked away quickly. I don't want any misunderstanding, she whispered. I respect him, but nothing more. Mama Grace tilted her head. And if life says otherwise? Ada's breath caught. Before she could answer, footsteps approached. Both women turned. David. He stood at the doorway, framed by the fading sunlight, his expression unreadable. Ada, he said quietly. May I speak with you? Mama Grace stood immediately. I'll give you two space. She slipped out, leaving Ada alone with the man whose life had just fallen apart in front of her eyes. David walked in slowly, stopped a few feet away and rested one hand on the counter. He didn't look angry. He didn't look hurt. He didn't look confused. He looked human. Something Ada had never seen in him so clearly before. Thank you, he said. Ada blinked. For what, sir? For being brave when everyone else, including me, was blind. Ada lowered her gaze. I didn't do anything special. You did more than you know, David replied. You stopped a cycle. You protected people. You showed me the truth about someone I thought I knew. He paused. You helped me open my eyes. Ada's throat tightened. I only wanted peace, sir. And yet, David said gently, you brought justice. He took a breath. Then another. There was something else he wanted to say, but he hesitated, weighing his words carefully. Ada, he finally whispered. I know today was heavy for all of us. But tomorrow will bring its own challenges. My board will hear about this incident. The media might come knocking. My extended family will certainly try to twist the story. Ada looked up slowly. What should we do? David's eyes softened. I don't know yet. He exhaled. But I know I want you to stay in this house. Ada froze. I don't want to cause more trouble. You won't. Clara will not be returning. Silence. Only the soft hum of the refrigerator filled the room. Then David stepped back slightly, gave her a small sincere smile and said, When the dust settles, I would like us to talk again. Properly. Ada's heart stumbled. Yes, sir, she whispered. He nodded gently and walked out. The moment he left, Ada pressed a hand against her chest. Her heart wasn't just beating. It was warning her. Or calling her. She didn't know which. Behind her, Mama Grace reappeared quietly. So, the old woman said with a sly smile. How did the talk go? Ada's cheeks burned. Mama. The older woman laughed softly and patted her shoulder. My dear, part 2 of your life has already begun. Night fell over the Anderson mansion like a velvet curtain. Soft and quiet, but carrying a heaviness that settled into every corner of the house. There were no raised voices now. No slamming doors. No echoes of fear or anger. Instead there was an eerie calm. The kind that follows disaster. In the staff quarters, some workers whispered in small groups, replaying the chaos over and over in their minds. Others kept to themselves, unable to grasp how quickly the day had turned from routine to unforgettable. Some were afraid. Some were relieved. But all of them in different ways were changed. Because today truth had walked into the mansion and demanded to be heard. Inside his study, David sat alone, elbows resting on the polished wooden desk, fingers intertwined tightly. His eyes were fixed on nothing. Or perhaps everything. The weight of betrayal pressed down on him like an invisible stone. He wasn't angry at Clara anymore. Anger was too simple for what he felt. He felt robbed. Robbed of trust. Robbed of innocence. Robbed of the future he thought he was walking toward. His mother had always told him, the wrong person will cost you more than money. They will cost you peace. Tonight he finally understood what she meant. His phone buzzed. He glanced at the screen. Board chairman, we heard something happened at your estate. Should we be concerned? He closed his eyes. Of course the news was spreading. Bad news always flew faster than the truth. He began typing a reply. All is under control. But his hand paused above the screen. Was anything under control? He deleted the message. Elsewhere in the mansion, Ada stood outside the back door, staring at the moonlit courtyard. The soft glow bathed the plants in silver light and made the air feel cooler, calmer. She needed that calm. She wrapped her arms around herself, replaying Clara's screams, Samuel's fury, Chief Benson's confession, and David's pain. She had never wanted to be the center of anything. She only wanted to work quietly, send money home, and avoid trouble. But trouble had found her anyway. She wondered what her mother would say if she were awake and healthy enough to speak to her by phone. Probably something wise. Something comforting. Something simple like, my daughter, truth costs something but lies cost more. Footsteps sounded behind her. She turned. It was David. He approached slowly, hands in pockets, gaze soft but searching. I thought you'd be resting, he said gently. Ada lowered her eyes. I couldn't sleep, sir. He came to stand beside her, both of them looking at the quiet courtyard. I know, he whispered. Neither can I. But what neither of them knew was that somewhere in the darkness beyond the gates, someone was watching them. Someone who had never left. Someone who was waiting for the right moment to strike. The next morning arrived too quietly. The sun rose over the Anderson mansion with a soft golden glow, but the house did not wake with its usual rhythm. No hurried footsteps in the hallways. No clatter of breakfast dishes. No gentle greetings between staff. Instead, everyone moved as though their bodies were present, but their spirits were still stuck in the chaos of the day before. Ada stood by one of the long dining tables, wiping it carefully even though it was already clean. Her hands were steady but her mind was not. She had barely slept. Barely eaten. Barely breathed without replaying every second of yesterday. Footsteps echoed faintly. She turned. It was the head butler, Mr. K.O.'d. Older, composed, but visibly tense. Ada, he said, voice low. Master David is asking for you in the study. Her heart jumped. Me? Why, sir? His eyes darted toward the hallway as if someone might overhear. I don't know. But the tone? The way he said it. He paused. Just go quickly. Ada wiped her palms on her apron and walked through the mansion with careful steps. Her heart thudded louder the closer she got to the study. Something felt different this morning. Not wrong. Not dangerous. But charged. When she reached the door, she knocked softly. Come in, David's voice answered. She entered. David stood by the window, back turned, hands clasped behind him. He was dressed in a sharp charcoal suit. Not for work, she sensed, but for a battle. Papers were scattered across his desk. Some stamped in red. Others with headlines from tabloids. He didn't turn around. Ada, he said quietly. Tell me something honestly. Her fingers tightened slightly. Yes, sir. Do you regret what you did? Ada blinked. No, sir. If I had to do it again, I would still stop her hand. David finally turned. His eyes, not as cold as last night but still wounded, met hers. I'm glad, he said. Then he walked to his desk, picked up a newspaper and handed it to her. She read the headline, Billionaire's fiancée arrested. Maid involved in mansion scandal. Her stomach dropped. She didn't want her name tied to scandal. She didn't come here to be seen. She came to work quietly and leave quietly. Her fingers trembled slightly as she lowered the paper. David watched her carefully. I'm sorry, he said. The press twisted everything. They're camped outside the gate. They want statements. They want interviews. They want faces. He paused. They want you. Ada's eyes widened in fear. Me? Why me, sir? I didn't do anything wrong. You didn't, David said firmly. But they don't care about truth. They care about stories. And you, he exhaled slowly, have become the center of one. Ada stepped back, panic rising in her chest. No, sir. I can't be in the news. My mother is sick. People in my village will worry. I don't want trouble. Please. David moved toward her. Ada, calm down. I won't let anyone harm you. But his reassurance wasn't enough to steady her breathing. Because this time the danger wasn't Clara. It was the world. David placed a gentle hand on her shoulder. I will protect you, he said softly. But I need you to trust me. She looked up at him. And for a moment the study felt smaller, quieter, almost like a confession. I do trust you, she whispered. And I need you today, his tone deepened. There are things I must handle. Things that may affect everyone in this house. But before that, I need to know something. She waited. His eyes searched hers with an intensity she wasn't prepared for. Why do you always look so fearless? He asked. She blinked in surprise. I'm not fearless, sir. I just don't want my fear to control me. David's chest rose as if the words reached deeper than she intended. Before he could respond, a loud, urgent knock exploded against the door. David's face hardened instantly. Come in. The head of security stepped inside, breathing heavily. Sir, there's a problem. David straightened. What now? It's Samuel Okoro. Ada gasped. What about him? David asked sharply. He didn't go home last night. David frowned. Where is he then? That's the problem, the guard said. He never left the compound. David's eyes narrowed. What do you mean he never left? The guard swallowed. We found his car parked behind the eastern wall. He paused. And sir, he wasn't alone. David stiffened. Alone? You mean someone else was with him? The guard shook his head slowly. No, sir. I mean someone came to meet him. A cold wave washed through the room. Ada's heart pounded. David stepped closer to the guard. Who came? The guard hesitated. We're not entirely sure. But the men we saw weren't ordinary visitors. David's jaw tightened. Explain. The guard finally said it. They looked like men who weren't coming for peace. What did Samuel want now? And who were these dangerous men he met with? Ada felt her knees weaken. David pressed his fingers to his temple, trying to piece the possibilities together. Are you saying Samuel may be planning something? David asked. The guard gulped. Sir, the men didn't enter the mansion. They stayed outside the eastern wall for only a few minutes. They exchanged something with Samuel. Then they left. David turned pale. Exchanged what? We don't know, sir. Ada felt a chill crawl up her spine. David's voice dropped to a cold whisper. Where is Samuel now? That's the thing, the guard said. He's inside the compound. Inside. David echoed. The guard nodded. He's been walking around the edges of the property since dawn, watching the house. Ada felt her throat tighten. Watching. Clara is already with the police. Then what does he want now? She whispered. The guard didn't answer because even he didn't know. David inhaled sharply and turned to Ada. Stay inside. Do not go near the windows. Do not walk alone. If anything feels strange, call me immediately. She nodded, fear creeping into her bones. But just as David walked past her to leave the study, she heard something. A whisper. Soft. Close. Too close. She turned sharply toward the window. Nothing. Her breath came unevenly. Are you all right? David asked, pausing. Yes, She swallowed. I thought I heard someone whispering. David frowned deeply. We'll increase security. He left with the guard, the tension following him like a shadow. Ada was now alone in the study. She looked again at the window. Nothing moved. No whisper. No sado. But the unease in her chest didn't fade. Hours passed. The mansion felt like it was holding its breath. Guards patrolled constantly. Workers whispered nervously. Ada stayed in the inner quarters as instructed, but her mind wouldn't rest. Then, in the late afternoon, another incident shook the house. A loud knock echoed through the hallway. Knock. 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 Slow. Heavy. Too deliberate. Everyone froze. Another knock followed. Same rhythm. Same weight. A guard rushed from the far end of the hallway. Everyone stay back, he commanded. Workers scattered into corners, some hiding behind pillars. The guard opened the front door a little and sunlight filled the corridor. But the moment he leaned forward to see who it was, he jerked back. The knock wasn't coming from the front door. It was coming from the side entrance. A second guard shouted from the kitchen. Sir, someone is at the side door. Asking for Ada. Ada felt her stomach twist violently. The maids beside her gasped. For you? One whispered. But how would he know your name? Another asked, eyes wide with fear. Ada didn't have an answer. David's voice suddenly rose from upstairs. What's happening? Sir, the guard replied with a shaky voice. Someone is at the side entrance asking specifically for Miss Ada. David descended the stairs quickly, his expression dark. Two guards flanked him. Do not open the door, David ordered. Check the cameras first. Another guard sprinted toward the surveillance room. Minutes later, he returned breathless. Sir, it's Samuel Okoro. A ripple of fear spread across the hallway. Ada's pulse hammered in her ears. Why is he asking for her? A worker whispered. David turned sharply to the guard. What is he saying? The guard swallowed hard. He says he needs to talk to the girl who held Clara's hand. The whole house froze again. Ada bit her lip, trying to stay calm. David stepped forward, placing himself between her and the side door. No one will speak to her without my permission, he said firmly. The guard nodded. Yes, sir. But then another knock echoed. This one louder. More forceful. David clenched his jaw. Move Ada to the inner quarters. She must not step outside or near any doors. Yes, sir. Two maids rushed to Ada, gently but urgently pulling her away. But as they rounded the corner, she heard Samuel's voice through the side door. Cold. Focused. Ada Okafor. I know you can hear me. Her breath caught. Every step became heavier. Who told him her name? Why her? Why now? The guards escorted her to the inner quarters. An area only used during emergencies. The small hallway had no windows. Only a single light bulb flickering occasionally. Ada sat on the bench, hugging herself tightly. Her mind spun wildly. Why would Samuel want her? She had never met him. She had never wronged him. Unless he believed she had something to do with Clara's exposure. Or worse, that she was now a witness he needed to warn. Or silence. Her breaths grew shaky. A soft knock sounded at the inner corridor door. Not Samuel's knock. This one was gentle. "Ada," David's voice called softly. She exhaled in relief. The guard opened the door and David stepped inside. He looked exhausted. Dark circles beneath his eyes. Worry lines deeper than usual. He sat beside her. "Are you all right?" he asked. "Yes, sir. I think." Her voice was small. David rubbed his forehead. "You're safe here. He can't reach this part of the house." Ada looked at him anxiously. "Sir, why does he want me?" David hesitated. Then he said something that made her blood run cold. "I don't know yet. But I promise I won't allow anything to happen to you." He paused. "Ada, there's something I need to tell you. Something about your mother." Ada's eyes widened. "My mother? What about her?" But before David could answer, the lights in the corridor suddenly went out. Complete darkness swallowed them whole. What did David know about Ada's mother? And why did the lights just go out? Ada gasped in the darkness. Her hand instinctively reached out and found David's arm. "Don't move," David whispered. His voice was steady, but she could feel the tension in his body. Footsteps echoed somewhere above them. Slow, deliberate, moving through the ceiling vents. "He's inside," Ada breathed, terror flooding her voice. David pulled her closer. "Stay quiet." The footsteps stopped. Then from somewhere in the darkness, a voice drifted through the vents. "Come." Terrifying. "Ada Okafor." Her entire body froze. "Don't be afraid," the voice continued. Samuel's voice. Ada's hands trembled. "How is he in the vents?" she whispered desperately to David. David's jaw clenched. "The mansion has old service tunnels. I thought they were sealed years ago." "You already know who I am," Samuel's voice echoed again. Ada couldn't help herself. "Why are you looking for me?" she called out, her voice shaking. Silence. Then footsteps again. Crawling through the vents above their heads. "Because you are the key," Samuel whispered. Ada's heart pounded violently. "Key to what?" she demanded. "You are the girl who stopped the hand. The girl who broke silence. The girl who made the first crack in the mansion's mask." Her breathing became uneven. "I'm not part of anything," she said. I know," Samuel interrupted softly. "That is why you're important." Ada pressed closer to David. "I don't want anything from you," she whispered toward the vent. The voice deepened. "But I do." Cold air drifted through the vent. "Tell David," Samuel whispered, "that Clara's story is only the beginning." The vent above them clicked softly. Then silence. The lights suddenly flickered back on. Ada stumbled backward, gasping. David stood quickly, pulling her toward the door. "We need to leave this area now," he said urgently. They burst into the corridor where guards were already gathering. "He spoke to me," Ada said, voice cracking. "Through the vents. He said Clara's story is only the beginning." The guards exchanged alarmed looks. David turned to his head of security. "Seal every vent in this mansion. I want men stationed at every entrance to those tunnels. Now." "Yes, sir." As the guards scattered, David led Ada to a safer room upstairs. His private sitting room. Heavily secured. No vents. No windows facing the outer walls. Once inside, he locked the door and turned to face her. "Ada, sit down," he said gently. "There's something I should have told you from the beginning." She sat slowly, her legs barely able to hold her. "What is it, sir?" David took a deep breath. "Your mother. I know about her." Ada's eyes widened. You know my mother?" "Not personally," David said carefully. "But years ago, I discovered her hospital file through one of my charity programs." Ada's heart began racing for a different reason now. "What do you mean?" David sat across from her. "When you first came to work here, I didn't know who you were. But after the incident with Clara, I had my team do background checks on all the staff for security reasons." He paused. "That's when I saw your mother's name. Okafor. From a small village near Enugu." Ada nodded slowly, confused. "Yes, sir. But what does that have to do with anything?" David's expression grew heavy. "Ada, I've been paying your mother's hospital bills. For over 2 years now." The room spun. Ada couldn't breathe. "What? You've been paying?" "Yes." "But why?" Tears welled in her eyes. "Why would you do that?" David looked down at his hands. "Because of guilt." "Guilt?" Ada whispered. "Guilt for what?" David stood and walked to the window, his back to her. When he spoke again, his voice was thick with pain. Years ago, before I became who I am today, I owned a smaller property. A mansion in Enugu. One night there was a fire. A terrible fire. Ada's breath caught. 2 people died that night, David continued. One of them was a cleaner. A woman named Okafor. Ada's blood turned to ice. Okafor? The same surname as yours, David said quietly. When I saw your mother's file and realized she was from the same area, the same community, I investigated further. He turned to face her. Your mother had a sister. A sister who worked as a cleaner. Ada stood slowly, her legs shaking. No, that can't be. The fire wasn't an accident, Ada, David said, voice breaking. It was arson. Set by a man named Engineer Kola. A twisted architect who wanted the land for elite development. Tears streamed down Ada's face. You're saying, my aunt died in your mansion? Yes, David whispered. And I've carried that guilt ever since. That's why I've been helping your mother. Because I felt responsible. Ada covered her mouth, sobbing. But David wasn't finished. Ada, there's more. The man who set that fire, the man they called Engineer Kola? He paused. He's still out there. And I think he's the one Samuel is working with. Ada's head snapped up. What? Before David could explain further, an emergency alarm erupted through the mansion. Loud. Piercing. Urgent. A guard's voice boomed through the intercom. Sir. Fire detected in the West Wing. I repeat, fire in the West Wing. David's face went white. Ada's entire body trembled. And then, through the mansion speaker system, a voice crackled. A voice neither of them had heard before. Cold. Calculated. Deadly. David Anderson. Bring the girl to the West Wing. Or I will burn it all down. Just like before. The voice paused. This time, everyone will burn. Who was this man? And how much time did they have before the mansion became a death trap? Smoke began seeping under the door. Ada could smell it. Sure. Bitter. The scent of destruction. David grabbed her hand. We have to move. Now. They burst out of the room into chaos. Workers ran in every direction. Guards shouted orders. The mansion trembled as explosions shook the West Wing. Everyone evacuate through the main entrance, a guard yelled. But David didn't follow them. He pulled Ada toward the West Wing instead. Sir, what are you doing? Ada cried. He wants us to go there. I know, David said grimly. But if we don't, he'll burn everyone alive. They ran through smoke-filled corridors. The heat grew stronger with every step. Ada's eyes watered. Her lungs burned. Then, standing in the middle of the burning hallway, they saw him. Samuel Okoro. His face was covered in soot. His eyes were red. But he wasn't running. He was waiting. Samuel. David shouted. What are you doing? Get out. But Samuel shook his head. I can't leave. Not until you know the truth. Ada stepped forward, coughing. What truth? What are you talking about? Samuel's voice cracked. The man you call Engineer Kola. I know him. I've known him for years. He swallowed hard. He terrorized our community. We called him the Devil of Riverside Settlement. David stiffened. Riverside. Yes, Samuel said. He wanted our land. He burned homes. He threatened families. And the woman who died in your mansion fire? His voice broke. She wasn't just a cleaner. She was a witness. The only person who saw him set fires before. Ada's heart stopped. A witness. Samuel nodded, tears streaming down his face. Her name was Okafor. Just like your mother's maiden name. Ada gasped. My aunt. Yes, Samuel whispered. But there's more. He looked directly at Ada. Your mother fled the village not just to protect you. She fled because... He hesitated. Because what? Ada demanded. Because the man who helped Engineer Kola set that fire. Samuel's voice shattered. Was your uncle. Your mother's own brother. The world stopped. Ada couldn't breathe. Couldn't think. Couldn't move. No, she whispered. No, that's not true. It is, Samuel said. Your mother discovered the truth after the fire. That's why she took you and ran. She wanted to protect you from the shame. From the danger. David caught Ada as her knees buckled. This can't be real, she sobbed. Another explosion rocked the mansion. Flames burst through the walls. And then, through the smoke, a tall figure emerged. Dressed in black. Face half covered. Eyes cold and calculating. Engineer Kola. Finally, the man said, his voice the same one from the speaker. The key has arrived. David stepped in front of Ada. Leave her alone. This is between you and me. Engineer Cola left. No, David. This was never about you. It was always about her. He pointed at Ada. Her family took something from me. Her uncle betrayed me. And now she will pay the price. Ada found her voice through the tears. I had nothing to do with what happened. But your blood did, Engineer Cola hissed. And blood must answer for blood. He pulled out a device. A trigger. This mansion will burn. Just like the last one. And you get to decide, Ada Okafor. His smile was cruel. Who dies in the fire? You. Or everyone else? David grabbed Ada's shoulders. Don't listen to him. We'll find another way. But before anyone could move, a steel door behind them burst open. Smoke cleared for just a moment. And a figure stepped through. Tall. Familiar. Moving slowly but purposefully. Ada's heart stopped completely. Because the voice that called her name was one she hadn't heard in over 3 years. Soft. Weak. But unmistakable. My child. Don't be afraid. Ada turned slowly, tears blurring her vision. Standing in the doorway supported by 2 nurses, was her mother. Alive. Awake. Here. Mama. Ada whispered, her voice breaking. Her mother's eyes filled with tears. Yes, my daughter. I'm here. Samuel stepped back in shock. David's eyes widened. Even Engineer Cola froze. Ada stumbled forward. But how? You've been unconscious for years. Her mother smiled weakly. I woke up 3 days ago. And when I heard you were in danger, nothing could stop me from coming. She looked past Ada at Engineer Cola. Her expression hardened. Cola, you've haunted my family long enough. Engineer Cola's face twisted with rage. You were supposed to stay silent. You were supposed to stay hidden. I was, Ada's mother said. But my daughter's life is worth more than my fear. She turned to Ada. My child, what he said is true. Your uncle made a terrible mistake. But you are not responsible for his sins. Her voice grew stronger. And I will not let this man destroy you the way he destroyed our family. Flames roared closer. The ceiling groaned. Engineer Cola raised the trigger. Then you'll all burn together. But before he could press it, Samuel lunged forward and tackled him. They crashed to the ground. The trigger flew from his hand. David grabbed it instantly. Guards rushed in from both sides, pulling Engineer Cola away from Samuel. The man screamed and fought, but it was over. Get everyone out now. David commanded. Guards evacuated the burning wing. Ada ran to her mother, holding her tightly as nurses helped them toward safety. Outside the mansion, under the night sky, Ada held her mother's hand. Tears streamed down both their faces. I'm sorry, her mother whispered. I'm sorry I couldn't protect you from the truth. Ada shook her head. You protected me by being here, Mama. That's all that matters. David approached them slowly. Mrs. Okafor, I'm the one who should apologize. If I had known. Ada's mother raised her hand gently. You gave us a second chance, Mr. Anderson. You helped me when no one else would. That is not something to apologize for. Sirens wailed in the distance. Fire trucks arrived. Police took Engineer Cola away in handcuffs. Samuel stood nearby, watching quietly. Ada walked over to him. Thank you, she said softly, for telling the truth. Samuel nodded. Your aunt was kind to my sister. I owed her family that much. As dawn broke over Lagos, the mansion still stood. Damaged but not destroyed. Burned but not broken. David stood beside Ada as her mother rested on a bench. What happens now? Ada asked quietly. David smiled gently. Now we rebuild. Not just the mansion. But everything. Ada looked up at him. Together? He nodded. Together. And for the first time since this storm began, Ada felt something she hadn't felt in years. Oh. We've come to the end of today's story. I hope it touched your heart. Thanks for watching and staying with us till the end. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more inspiring stories. See you in the next one. And tell us in the comments, where are you watching from?